The other thing with this, though, and in relation to certain, events and things happening in the world right now and how it's affecting different people, because we've been paying attention, we've been watching, listening to a lot. And there's a variety of mixed reactions and responses from people to the illumination or being made public of certain information that wasn't before. And so for people who have been clueless or have not been informed of certain things or cannot fathom, like in their reality, that certain things exist, it can be hard to watch, right? And to witness. And we feel for people. Because the other thing too about some of what's happening in the world too, right, is like the weaponization of information and the way things are shared and the negligence of how certain things are handled. Again, like we're making progress. We're working towards a lot of different things here, but we have a long way to go yet, right? So there's a lot going on, but we're paying attention, we're watching, we're listening, and we're working with not only like the energies, this isn't all just like up in the air, pulling out of our ass, like planets in outer space. No, these are very real aspects within ourselves, our own shared consciousness, as we'll go into talk about a little bit more here, and how we are all affected by these things. But, everyone kind of decides for themselves what they choose to believe, and then based off that, how they interact with each other in the world. So, but there's just, this is all related. So let's keep going. Let's get into it. Yes. So secrecy, worldly power, and control. Sacrifice, brainwashing, mind manipulation, control through lack of education and knowledge, especially around women, and more so the young children, especially adolescent girls. Sexual assault, abuse, inbreeding, maintaining family, wealth, status, public perception over genuine freedom, which is necessary for any kind of actual genuine love, a just and fair or untainted legacy, one not founded on deceit, lies, and degradation. Just a few notes on some of our observations. What we can observe through one's psychological lens and how these patterns have existed and persisted throughout the course of time and across many cultures, having a far greater impact on the lives of us all, especially our children, who have and still are being born into a world that is indeed our own making, especially in relation or terms of collective or shared consciousness goes. Even if we are born or reborn into a new life with at least a partial memory wipe, given a new identity and new karmas even, my neck again. Who is to say that we and the people we love, if we ever did genuinely love anyone other than ourselves in the first place, won't be faced with the same problems that were created, if not an exacerbated, more extreme, complex, harmful one than prior? And when I say this, right, and this is the little like after the fact note of clarification here, we're speaking directly to a much smaller portion of the population here. Those that will know exactly who we're speaking to when they hear it. So, if you're watching this and you question whether or not you're one of those people, probably not, but, very small group of people that know who they are. Perhaps we may even succeed at sparking a slight remembrance in one of these in the process. While we are not directly linked or responsible for any other person's individual decisions, and therefore karma associated with each, and again, we touched on this in the last video, was it? Was it not the Virgo one? It was the Aquarius one. The Aquarius one, yeah, where we touched on like responsibility, boundaries, and stuff like that. I don't know if I talked about that anymore in the Virgo one, but we touched on it there. So this is kind of piggybacking off of that. We're responsible to each other in the sense that we all share this earth, this planet we find ourselves inhabiting, although at its expense. We all share the resources that provide for the needs of the people, although long gate-kept and unequally distributed. Many of us share in a common care, concern, and love for each other, our families and neighbors, communities, and even wider networks of people across long distances, although consistently physically isolated and separated. And many of us genuinely desire to help and create positive change in this world. And as far as the idea of a collective and shared consciousness goes, well, we may just very well be doing exactly that. despite the true minority of spiritually blind and ignorant elitists, there's that group we're talking about, who sacrifice themselves, their own sovereignty, and any chance at a kind of true internal power and authority for mere paper. Paper. The way out of the paper. Paper. Or in this day and age, a number on a screen. Since we don't use cash money as much anymore, or coinage. Numbers. Digital numbers. Oh, let's see. For an idea, a belief, a perception, ultimately, what are these things other than an illusion? Anything that we tell ourselves to be true or we believe in our own mind can be an illusion, depending on, what that is. But, and so many of our illusions are self-made, self-taught even through these systems, right? Through family systems, through a lot larger, more integrated, expansive systems that have existed before us. A lot of illusions. Yeah. But the good thing is, once we recognize an illusion for what it is, we understand what it is, how it comes to be, how it functions, and we're able to separate an illusion from real truth, then as we dispel our own illusions and the things that we come to understand that we once believed that were false, or that were not based in reality, that were not based in truth, when we do that for ourselves, we're able to do that for others. And again, this is very Neptunian, and one that we have been warned of for so very long. There is no limit or depth that a person is willing to go when they are afraid. Fear controls people. And what are we afraid of exactly? More often than not, it's rather simple, in being seen for who and what we truly are. If we cannot face ourselves for the horrific crimes that have been committed against our fellow brethren and even our own children, what will be of us? What will result other than continual suffering? And, that is meant as a... what's that word? It's not meant for you to answer it. The answer's already in it. Like, we know the answer to this, right? Repeat after repeat, life after life. Like, it's the same thing for a reason. There is a reason, if not one amongst many, as to why more people haven't been taught about self-sovereignty and reclaiming their inner seat of the self, soul, and of internal sourced power. This would be non-advantageous to those in this world who have relied upon outdated systems of power and control over people that have little to nothing to do with what true power actually is. And that time has come to a close. Although there are some who are certainly grasping at straws. And that's the end of what we wrote in regards to the karma section. So then we're going to go up to our personal placements. We're just going to hop right into it, okay? So, for Pisces, we've got our 10th house here, which is typically ruled by Capricorn and Saturn, therefore, right? And that is where our Pisces sits, and contains our Saturn, our midheaven, and 9 or 10 asteroids? Yeah. And then our 12th house. But before we go on to that, we're going to talk about our 10th house here in relation to Pisces. And oh yeah, I was like, wait, what's the Taurus? Wait, where's that at? Oh, no, that isn't the 12th. Okay. Okay, yeah. So 10th house, Saturn. Our Saturn return reflections on our entire life as we transitioned from spiritual infancy or childhood, they consider it, to a more mature or adult-like period of our life, associated with the mother stage, and how it connects us not only to ourselves and God more deeply, but also the relationships with the people around me, as well as my work and career life. Love that for us. How these intersect, seen through any perceived separation between our work and personal life as far as how we operate or interact within a similar framework while still within certain boundaries. And I wrote here a note to give an example. So we personally see work as a kind of human service, not just, a function to make money. We actually do see it as a way to like serve and help people. And I think a lot of people do, but not everyone makes that connection, or they don't truly feel that way. But we do, okay? A human service or a ministry beyond physical duties, but tending to the hearts, minds, and souls of people through our work day in and day out. How our personal karma is in relation to our Saturn and midheaven and Pisces in our 10th house, expands, extending, and reaching outward through the people we see and work with and love, most importantly, and we're able to make a greater impact on not only the personal lives of all the people involved, but in the wider community through these connections and their shared vulnerability, no matter how large or small that may seem. So there's a sweet little note of like, kind of like how we view our current like work and career life. In regards to this. Okay, and then, oh my God, my next little note, I said, watch what you say here, LOL, be very vague. This is the one where we had edited it back a little bit, and I was like, oh, I don't want to talk about that. Yeah, so as far as like our asteroids in this part of our chart, right, like we have a couple like sex-based asteroids, which is very interesting, as far as how this plays a role in our working career life, you could say, right? And I would say, we've touched on this briefly in the past. I think it was in our Scorpio moon video in the fall, because of like the Scorpio, sun person that we work with. What do we say here? Yeah. And then with Capricorn's major arcana being associated with the devil, I would say the devil's association with our 10th house and our Saturn, it's helpful here in some ways. I'm like trying to think about what to say, on one side of things, but because of some of those asteroids that have a little bit of a naughtier association, it would certainly point to areas of our life where we have run into, again, some challenges in regards to our public-facing life, I guess you could say, right? Let me see here. Yeah, we gotta decide what we want to say about this. Okay, so yeah, and I didn't even want to share. Originally, I was going to share this one article or blog that I was reading from in relation to this, because I think, she has some good information on learning about this. But because I didn't want to share those particular asteroids publicly, again, that is like one of those things that I would like keep between like me and a partner for very specific reasons. I was like, we're gonna scrap that and not talk about that. But what I will say, some themes here, right, in regards to this can be like, we wrote here, like rumors and scandals having a place in this, right? Unfortunately, can be like part of like the shadow side of it, right? But not necessarily just like in a public role doing something like this, right? But like private life as well, like or people taking more of an interest like in our private life than is appropriate or necessary. And again, this is something that we experience in work, but we've also experienced in the rest of our life in the world, even from a very young age, I will say. And again, I think I've shared like some examples of some of the stuff that we've experienced in the past that were just kind of weird, but I will say, definitely, like, since I was a kid, unfortunately, like, we have dealt with some things in regards to this, and still to this day. And I think I mentioned before, it might have been in that Scorpio moon video, about how one of these days I have to make a video. I don't know if I can do it while I'm at my job because I don't want to get in trouble, but one of these days I want to be able to share like a list, and there is a lengthy list of like all of the different things that we have been, things that have been said to us, things that have happened, just like the way people have acted around us at work. And this is like on a day-to-day basis. Like if I am able to go one day without some of this happening, that would be a huge relief. But unfortunately it's not. And that is the reality of like our work life. Unfortunately, I know, again, that's not that way for everyone, but it really is that bad. And I don't really know how to share that, right, in a way that like is appropriate on here. But there's a lot. Yeah. Like as far as like comments on our appearance, on our body, asking us things about sex and like our romantic life and relationships. And I mean, all the time, almost nearly every single day. Yeah. And just day in and day. Yeah. It's kind of crazy. So that is a part of what we deal with. It's not my favorite part of my job. I actually really abhor it. But it is, it is a part of this, unfortunately. And I was hoping, right, and doing something like this and like sharing more of ourselves online, that we might not have to deal with that. But I don't know. It just, let's see. Maybe let's get, I said LMAO might. The other thing, okay, some more notes about being like oblivious to the insecurities that other people reflect onto us or like project onto us, right? Because that happens a lot as well. And again, like we're not one to just like blindly or like willfully just like accept or like take any sort of like disgusting behavior from people, especially from men, ignorant men. And so we have a tendency to, as much as we're able to, we kind of just like ignore, like walk away from things. But when I can't in certain situations, we will throw it back. Even not like throw that ass back, right? But like we will throw back to them like that same energy, and that like, do not speak to me that way. Like that is disgusting. You're gross. Like you need to stop. Like we go through this on a like day-to-day basis. It's sick and it's fucked up, but this is a part of the nature of reality, unfortunately, not only for me, but for many women. We just happen to experience it a lot more in our work life because of things like this, but it's some of what goes on, some of what we deal with. Yeah, it can feel like a burden because we're not able to always recognize where some of these things stem from in people, right? Like if people reflect or project some of their internal insecurities onto us, especially when it's related to like sexual matters, it can be, all over the place. Yeah. Especially when people do these things from the shadows, right? Whether that be in the form of like, again, talking about like rumors, scandals, gossip, talking about someone, especially if it's someone you don't even know, right? Like imagine you just like see them online and you start talking bad about them, just start talking shit about them. And you don't even know them. You've never even met them. You've never even spoken to them before. And you got shit to say about them. And about their body. And about sex. And as someone who has, again, shared more publicly since then, I think it started in our Taurus moon video. And then we talked about it in our Saturn Pisces video. And maybe one other one, I forget. About the fact that we have been single and celibate for like about 10 years now. And still, we deal with this on a near day-to-day basis. But certain people in the world, and unfortunately, right, it happens to be men most of the time, can be so ignorant and arrogant and just downright stupid that they can't think outside of themselves to think, oh, maybe this is not okay. Maybe this is fucked up. Maybe there's something really fucking wrong with me to be talking about this woman that I don't even know this way. But, again, when we talk about like the culture and these systems and structures that have been in place in the world and their relation to like patriarchy, for example, and giving men certain kinds of power that they haven't earned rightfully for themselves, you boost their ego, you boost their pride, you boost their lower nature, you make them afraid of you, of more seemingly powerful men than you, and they'll do just about anything because they're afraid, even if that means, you know, tearing apart and attacking women who are innocent and have nothing to do with their insecurities. But that is the nature and reality of this world that we live in, and one that is set to change and is already. Love to see it, but we have a long way to go. And a lot of that, part of that is, you know, more people and men particularly taking accountability for themselves, being able to honestly reflect on their own nature and their own ways of contributing to these broken systems. The way that they continue to sacrifice themselves and others, and even to the extent of sometimes claiming love, which is the craziest part about it all, of it all. To claim that like abusive behavior is love, controlling behavior is love. I don't know what kind of fucking world certain people live in, but it's a really distorted one. It's a really fucked up one. So, yeah, and then going off this too, right? Like, because we have chosen a different path for ourselves, like the shadow aspect of this, as far as like a sex asteroid in this place, right, could show up as like us like falling in love with, right, certain kinds of people. Again, it like brings up like the narcissistic traits or like antisocial. Sometimes people don't have clear motives for us, right? They might try to lead us on, or they might try and trigger a trauma bond. Love bombing is a great example of this, right? But because we have, with our own free will, decided not to partake in that, we see things for how they are, truthfully. Like, we're not as naive or ignorant to be wrapped up in some of these things. Unfortunately, that doesn't mean like other people can't fall prey to or victim to those things, right? Even if, like, I myself, for example, right, like, am not partaking in these dynamics, that doesn't mean that other people don't fall into them, right? And sometimes, unfortunately, even if it like includes us, even if, and this is where, you know, I was like, oh, you can think of some more examples. Like, if I go back to, again, like when I was a kid, again, it's fucked up, but this is true, right? Back to when I was a kid, elementary school, middle school, high school. And I think it got worse in a lot of ways when I moved here from Florida. And I was in high school, and, you know, it was a total different, like, culture here, and, like, the kinds of people I was around, especially being in, like, a boarding school, and where most kids, they call it nowadays, like, affected by ACE, adverse childhood experiences. But when you put a bunch of children who have experienced very, like, traumatic things in their lives in a bubble, and they're all together, there's a lot of, like, kind of like trauma bonding that goes on. And so I think, you know, a part of, we experienced a lot more of that when I got here and got to high school then. And even though, again, like, I wasn't partaking in certain kinds of behaviors, I still got a lot of that projection. And I would find out, right, if not around that time, I would find out shortly after heard it through the grapevine, right? Like, I would hear it through gossip. And it would hurt me. It would really break my heart time and time again, right? Because it would be like people that I would think were my friends. And like, they would say and do the most disgusting, heinous things. And then after the fact too, after I graduated, I would find out things then of the way that boys were talking to each other about me that didn't even know me like that. But they would just say whatever they wanted to, or claim whatever they wanted to, even if it wasn't true. And I find it disgusting. So, but that is something that we've dealt with our whole life. Yeah. And, you know, we've talked about like our Pluto too, like our Pluto and Venus dominance. And our Venus in the 12th house, which we're going to talk about next year, has really helped in balancing this out for us. But the Pluto, right, like that really gets people because, again, like we've dealt with a lot of like obsession, like people becoming obsessive or possessive or like controlling towards us. Even if I don't know them, even if I want nothing to do with them, like people still get like that, unfortunately, right? And then we get all kinds of strange behavior, and it has made me to feel like very unsafe. And again, it's like part of the reason we have, you know, moved around quite a bit, and we have kept our distance from a lot of people, and we even lived in our car for many years on and off because of that, because it just was like, this is too much. Like I cannot deal with this on an ongoing basis, but we do. So that's that. And we're going to go into the 12th house here. So typically ruled by Pisces, but for us it's our Taurus again, right? And it contains our Venus and 5 asteroids, which includes things like Aphrodite and Hera. And I wrote lover power, powerhouses in the game, because they are, you know, it's like very strong love, mother related influence. And then I wrote here, we already hit an hour for this video, so I know it's around that time, right? Going back to the little Google search, I was like, I don't know how much time I have left to honestly record, so we need to wrap this up before it cuts out. We'll just briefly go over this. So I wrote here, in regards to, yes, okay, let's see. Stages of my life and love as it relates to the mother wound. And this is something we're going to talk about here in the future as well. Like things like the mother and father wound and the different archetypes. Like we're going to go through all different kinds of things. But just to touch on it here now briefly, right? I have like a few important relationships in my life that were have significant Taurus placements, right? And how we have related to them. So we have my relationship with my grandmother, who was a Taurus sun. And she represented more of like a wounded elder figure in our life, right? Because she didn't really, I don't want to say she ever really took on like a mother role for me. She kind of always sat in that like elder or like chronal kind of energy, where she would try and like teach and guide me, but it was often so mishandled. But we got a bit of both, right? And then we have one of the young girls in my life who's also a Taurus sun. The one that has been in my life for the past 12 going on, well, no, like 10 years or so. Yeah. And she would represent some of the like wounded child archetype. And again, she's so young, but I think I mentioned before about like seeing a lot of myself in her, and being involved in her life has been very healing for me, right? And I hope for her too, right? Yeah, but I look at her and I see, you know, she has such a long way to go in this world yet. But yeah. And then this plays into those systems too, right? Like why kids keep getting hurt and like why they need healing in the first place. So she's really inspired me and continues to be an inspiration for like doing things like this, because I want to create a better world for her. And then we have here our housemate, which is a newer connection for us. I've only known her for about a year. And her birthday's coming up at the end of later in April, I think. Yeah, because she's an Aries Taurus cusp. So next month will be her birthday then. And she represents, I wrote here like she's more of like a friend peer for me, even though she is older. She's significantly older than me. But the way that we hang out and interact, she can be a little like motherly towards me, but I think women have that it just naturally in them to be like nurturing towards each other in general, because I could be like that towards her too. Like when she was recovering from surgery, I was like walking the dog for her and like offering to like get her stuff and like, you know, help her out with things. But she's more like friendly peer like level with me. She's like a very healthy individual herself in the way that she cares for herself and her family and like people around us. And she just, yeah. And so she's like a good reflection to me to like live with and be around. That is like a higher form of that like love exemplified in my life, in relation to the Taurus energy, right? Yeah. So some of what we've reflected on, right? And again, I don't know how much time I have to actually like go into these. I think originally I was going to go into more examples with them, especially my grandmother, but I don't think we're going to have time to do it here. So another video. Well, my notes are in relation to it now, so we will briefly. I wrote here, so some of the common themes we do see amongst these three women figures, right, in their relation to the mother wound here, is I wrote here like boys versus men, the dangers and disappointment in centering men in our lives, female empowerment and the development of self, including personal vision, goals, and dreams, and this relation in deciding what specific people belong in our life, where and just how close we allow them to be to us, intimacy with the self before intimacy with another person, and making sure our shared intimacy with another is truly being chosen by us, by what we want and need through a clear heart and mind, so that we are not making decisions or being manipulated and taken advantage of from a wounded or unhealed place within ourselves, where we self-abandon, leading to self-sabotage that branches out to sabotaging what could otherwise potentially be more satisfying and fulfilling relationships, where we do not continue the cycle of violence in our own lives and the lives of those we claim to love. Big period. That was a long sentence, but it pretty much like sums up some of our thoughts on this. And again, like patterns that we see in these women, the relationships with them. Yeah, I mean, the way, like these women in particular, right, but it's everywhere, it's global. The way that women often end up in certain situations, right, whether it be in unsuccessful or like failed marriages, unhappy, unfulfilling marriages, right, with unexpected children or unloved children, even unwanted, or people who continue to look for love outside of themselves through a man, through a partner, because again, we see this in these people as well. And we've talked about this with some of them. Yeah, my grandmother and I haven't had contact for many years now at this point, which was not my decision. She chose that. But yeah, it was just, you know, when we as women, right, make the decision to allow a man into our life and to know us intimately before we've gotten to know and understand ourselves on that level of intimacy, then we're inviting, it doesn't really make logical or rational sense, right? Because we're inviting a man to attempt to know us in a way that we don't know ourselves. And it's like, how can you do that? How can you expect someone else to know you and love you better than you do, right? And part of the problem we've run into has more so been like, as much as we have gotten to know and love ourselves, we've had a hard time, you know, in the past with meeting people who were capable of meeting us in that same place, like to that same degree or to that same level. And again, like people tend to self-sabotage in all sorts of ways. But I think the more we become conscious of these things, aware of them within ourselves and the people we love, the more we're able to kind of like combat them and to prevent them from happening in the first place. But yeah, I just think, and it's not just women too, like men could really benefit from this as well. Being taught to prioritize their well-being and like the health of their internal world, right? Not just like physically and like searching outside of themselves to like meet their needs, right? Because like women can be a form of escapism for them for that as well. Part of the reason why like the porn industry is so huge, even though it's terribly exploitative. So, and again, there's so many topics that we could like branch out with this, where I'm like, you know, these are like further video ideas that we'll get into down the road. But Cinna has come to say it's time to end this. I think, yeah, because I know we're running low on time here. So I think we're just going to wrap that up there. Yeah, and be done with this. Because then we have to wait for it to upload. And, the longer the video, the longer it takes to upload. So that's I don't even know, bitch. But we're just about done here with Pisces season. Yeah. And then the sun joins Aries and the other major planets. So that's really exciting. And the spring equinox, new astrological year. Yeah, okay. What do you think about that, Cinna? We said a lot. We had a lot of information in this one, yeah. And a little more like deeper, darker themes related to this, right? But in regards to Pisces, right, like as much as we can swim in the light, we can also swim in the shadow, right? And so we can see a bit of both worlds. It's a part of the strength of Pisces, right? Is being able to walk in different realms, different worlds, right? I think part of what we read was like it's being able to like walk with the divine as well as with the mortal, right? To be a kind of bridge between God and man. Like we're able to commune with both. And this is everyone. Like we all have, this in some aspect of our charts within ourselves, in our own consciousness, in our own mind and heart. We are just, one person kind of trying to exemplify this. Yes. So that's that. I love you. I'm here. That's all. I'm going to go now. Okay. Say bye. 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 Love you. Bye.